What's going on, guys? Today we're sitting down with a man who lives life to the fullest and helps others do the same, Jimmy Rex. He's an entrepreneur, a real estate powerhouse, and the founder of We Are the They, a movement helping men become their best selves. But more than all of that, he's a son, a brother, and a man who's passionate about purpose and connection. We dig into fatherhood, legacy, and what it means to lead from the front. Let's get into it.
So usually we talk to dads. We had the dad pods on, and Tyson talked about you, and he's like, hey, "You guys gotta have Jimmy on." We're like, "Yeah, let's do it. That'd be awesome." We kind of looked you up, and we love your journey. We love what you stand for, and just for men, because that's kind of what we want to be. Is what we're building. I think that's what every dad podcast wants or man podcast wants. They want to build that community of dads and just show that, we don't have to be the grandpas and dads anymore that of old that are all like, well, you can't have any emotions. You got to work till you're dead. And, you know, you just have to show up and shut up. And, we want to kind of break that trend.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. It's really cool to, I could be an honorary dad today. It's one of those things that until about 2 years ago, I didn't know if I wanted to be a dad, and, that will be the next chapter of my life. And I've had the honor of being around so many great men and great dads. And so you do learn a lot just being around so many amazing fathers.
Mm-hmm. And I think just like you said, you're an honorary dad. You speak into so many men that, you've earned that title,
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool, man. I've had the chance now to coach over 500 guys. And, one of the main reasons I started my program was because this was the program I wish my dad had. When I was growing up, I had a dad that he was amazing 95% of the time, but that 5% could be really bad. And, and I talked to him a couple of years ago. We had this really beautiful conversation. I asked him, I said, Dad, we started talking about some really serious stuff. I said, when's the last time you talked to anybody about any of this? And he was like, I've never been able to talk to anybody about any of this. And, he had a couple friends, one or two, but they were the kind of friends that they would kind of feed each other into negativity all the time. And I just remember just these really negative guys that he was around. And then he had the church set up, but you're not allowed to be vulnerable and really talk about what's going on in that kind of setup. And so he just had to hold all this stuff. And that's why, it would spring out as, this father that was definitely wounded, and he needed a group like mine. And so that was a big impetus for starting my program in the first place. It was what I wish my dad had when he was younger.
Well, I've kind of, in reading your story, I read that about how you had it in your hat and stuff where it was, you're not good enough. Your dad would tell you that. And you kind of used that while you were younger. And then as you got older, you're kind of like, no, this is kind of holding me back,
Yeah. My dad, when I was kind of started when I was 14 years old, I got cut from the baseball team, and all my friends that whole summer were playing on the all-star team, and I wasn't able to play, and I was by myself. My dad saw how much that pained me. And so he had this idea. He'd seen it happen with some other kids at a different school where they got held back a year in school. And because of that, they were just older and they had that extra year of experience. And they ended up becoming like really good baseball players. One was like the state MVP. And so he wanted me to get held back when I was in 8th grade. But I had a really good group of friends. I was already one of the older kids. I was a pretty smart kid in class and school. And so I just didn't want to get held back. And when I told him I wasn't going to do it, he looked at me and said, okay, well, just so you know, you're not good enough. You'll never play baseball again. And all I heard was, you're not good enough. And so I wrote that underneath my hat as a motivation, and then I wore that every year. And I ended up playing high school baseball and having a really nice career. But when I became an adult, when I was older, and, I was one night with some friends, and I was doing kind of like a meditation thing, and I saw my hat. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, because an adult, I know the power of words and affirmations and how we talk to ourselves and all that stuff. And I thought to myself, what have I done? And I realized that I had, that was why I was kind of the way I was. Everything I was doing was to this never ending need to feel loved or feel like I was enough. And so it worked in weird ways. I mean, it helped me in a lot of ways, right? Like, it helped me be an achiever. It helped me to work hard. It became number one in my industry. I always wanted to impress everyone around me, but my fulfillment wasn't there because it was a never ending hole. And when you don't fix those underlying issues, no matter how much love you're getting or how much people are pouring into you, you don't feel it. And so that day I kind of started my path of self-love, and the message that came to me was kind of cool. It was like, this has served you, but it no longer does. It's time to let it go. And
Good.
so I started, looking at things a different way that day.
Awesome. Well, like going on that journey of self-love, like you talk about how you want to redefine, healthy masculinity. Because like we talked about, like we're not those grandparents now who are like, we can't have emotions, because we are definitely about breaking that cycle nowadays where, men can show their emotions, because when they don't, that's when the bad stuff happens, because they bottle everything up and they explode on people.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to have like a men's community or men's group or close friends at least, because look, there is an element of like, part of the guy's job, the masculine in the relationship, is to make the woman feel safe, to make the kids feel safe. And so in that, you can't just come home from work and start crying about your job or your work or kind of let it fall apart. Like, you do have to shoulder a giant responsibility to keep your woman safe emotionally and financially. And so what's so beautiful about men's communities or men's groups or men's work is, that's the place where you get to call your buddies and go, dudes, I'm not doing so hot. Like, and you get to fall apart if you need to. And we had a guy's mom died a couple of weeks ago, and we were all at an event, and we were doing this challenge where you basically push yourself physically so hard in a day. It's called the Masogi challenge, that every other day is easy in comparison. And so we were pushing ourselves. We were doing a CrossFit workout, and the dude, his mom had died a couple of days before. He just pushed himself to the limit, and he broke, and he just started crying and sobbing on the ground. And we all just kind of loved him and held him and, put our arms around him. We're able to do that for him. He can't do that in front of his family right now. He's got to be strong for the other people in his family and everything like that. Right. Like, that isn't the place to do that. He'd scare the shit out of everybody. But in our spot, in our space, it was so safe and so beautiful to watch him be able to do that. And, whether it's you get broke up, or you get in a fight with your wife, or whatever that space looks like, to be able to talk about it and share those emotions, like you said, when you repress them, that's when they just fester and they, can spring out in kinky, weird ways. And so it really is beautiful to be able to hold that space and create a spot where men can, where they can share their emotions, and they can share, maybe that they're not doing so well, and talk about when they're frustrated or upset or whatever that is.
Yeah. I really like having that community, because all it takes is one person being vulnerable, and then you kind of have permission to be vulnerable. It's almost like you needed that one guy in your life to show you that, like, it's okay to share your emotions and to share what you're going through, and once you know that it's a safe environment, it's like the floodgates open up. All of a sudden your body's like, finally we're allowed to release all of this. And like you said, like, he just broke down, just started crying. Like, finally, he was allowed to be able to let the emotions go and finally get the healing that he needs and deserves. So I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked to, we talked to Joe of I Love You Bro Project, and that's kind of his thing, is like, you just creating that safe place for he calls it just everyone bros, And so just creating that place for men. And that's kind of like our journey too. Like, we want to create that place for men, but mainly like we want to find dads out there, that, because dads go through a lot. That's why our podcast was birthed out of, was just us going through hard times. We just wanted to get out there and talk to each other. And I saw that you were talking to Chris Willix, and he talked about how, like, there was a study done where we need like 2 nights a week to hang out with your men, your guys. And it is needed. You need that community of guys that you can talk to outside of your house. Because that was when I was going through my darkest days. My wife's like, you need to talk to someone. She's like, I don't care if you talk to me, but you got to go talk to someone. And so that's where this came from. Like, we just needed to get things out. So.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And, and there was a study, one of his guests, Chris Williamson, had on, and said that, and they've done these different studies all over the place. And I think the underlying principle, somebody might hear that and be like, well, who the heck has time to spend 2 nights a week with bros or whatever? But at the end of the day, what it's saying is like, hey, it's okay if your husband wants to go golf with his buddy. It's okay if he wants to go fishing. It's okay if they want to go to the ball game together. Like, this is how men are able to talk and communicate and feel that sense of need and purpose, and, and talk to each other about what's really going on. And so I think that's the underlying message, that the takeaway from it.
Mm-hmm. And we've talked about, like, we don't know what day we do it, but we've talked about starting like a live group once a week, because we're separate. So it's kind of hard to do like together. unless we like made 2 separate groups. But we're talking about doing like a live for 4 dads, 4 men, like once a week to kind of start creating that Fatherhood Unscripted community. Because we do have people talk to us about stuff like that. We have people come to us. We went to a men's conference 3 weeks ago, something like that.
3 weeks ago, yeah.
And it's just seeing, like, it was for my uncle. He ran it, and he's like, it's a men's conference, but it ended up being more like geared towards dads, and how it's men that we grew up with, where like we never thought we'd hear them talk about the things we heard them talk about that night. And it's like showing up for your family and just having emotions and just being there. And it's like, it is working and things are changing, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm. And so, you talk about authenticity, vulnerability, integrity. What drove you in life to just have those be like your key values?
So when I started this program, I started thinking of all the different things I learned, moments I'd had, life-changing experiences. And there were several of them. But one of them was when a buddy of mine named Andy had called my buddy Jeremy into integrity. Yeah. And my buddy Andy had basically done a lot of things to try and ruin his life. And I watched this guy change everything around and get back into integrity and talk to his wife and save his family. And it took a long time, but I watched him do it, and he went all in for his family. It was the most beautiful thing to watch. And when he did that, I was there from the beginning. I watched that thing. And so I realized the importance of getting into integrity. And the more I studied it, the more I started understanding that, like, when we're in alignment with ourselves, the world will conspire in our favor. But when we're off, it's all just kind of random chance. And so that became kind of like, the first pillar. And then being vulnerable is being a superpower. I remember the first time I ever got vulnerable. I'd been invited to this retreat at this cabin, and my job was to upsell all the people that were there. And, it was interesting because I had never seen people be truly vulnerable before. And these people were really ripping the mask off and talking. And I remember just thinking, wow, like, I want to kind of do that. Like, talk about how I'm actually feeling sometimes. Right. I had never exposed myself like that. And I just was like, you know what? I don't even know any of these people, but well, let's do it. And I did, and I'm bawling and I'm talking, and I was afraid if anybody ever knew this about me, and it was just that I wasn't always okay. Like, it was like, it wasn't even anything big. I was like, then they wouldn't, think the same of me. And it was the opposite, man. I never felt so loved in my life. And that day I just realized that vulnerability is a superpower. And me and my friends over the next, decade really had those kind of relationships, our close friends, and we just got so much deeper with each other. So it's okay, vulnerability needs to be in there. And then authenticity. It's like when you're wearing a mask, you don't trust the love you're getting, so people can pour into you all day long. But if you're not, being real, you're subconsciously, you're thinking, well, they're just accepting this version of them I'm showing them, or they're accepting this mask I've put on. And so you don't even feel the love that's there. And so, again, so when I started the program, I had a mentor, my coach, Melissa, one time had said to me, she said, Jimmy, you're most lovable when you're vulnerable, authentic, and in integrity. And I was like, damn, those are the 3 pillars. And so I just added those 3 as the impetus for the program.
Nice.
Everything just kind of lined up. Oh, you're good, dude. Good.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, like, authenticity, just knowing yourself, and like, because you don't know, like, if you're not real with yourself, you don't know what you need. And if you have lived a life of like people pleasing, and like, I know I've had strands of where I'm like, do I like doing this? Like, I start asking myself these questions, and I don't know if you've ever asked yourself, Jimmy, but like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't even, like, I guess I got to a point in life where everybody around me, I was just pleasing them and wanting to do what they wanted to do, and not absolutely knowing what it is I wanted out of life, because I wasn't being real with myself, and I wasn't dealing with the stuff that I had going on, because I was just giving. And at a point, obviously, if you're not real with yourself and you don't pour into yourself, you're going to run empty. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, Jimmy. And
yeah, it's just like you said, it's like, I think we all have to, I think everybody goes through those moments in life where you're like, is this what I want to be doing? Does my life matter? Is what I'm doing important? Are my best years behind me? Like, what the hell am I even, what's my purpose? And a lot of people, they kind of just let society or religion or whatever kind of tell them what they should be doing all the time. And I think it takes a lot of work to really sit down and ask yourself, like, hey, am I happy? Is this working for me? Is this truly, do I feel fulfilled? And do I feel like I figured out my purpose? And so, yeah, taking the time to go through that. And I know for me, I really got very intentional about what the purpose of my life was going to be, because I was obsessed with making sure I live a good life. I know that sounds stupid, but I just always wanted to be somebody. I wanted to have a life that mattered. And so for me, I went through this whole experience, Tony Robbins' Day with Destiny event. And, I came up with my own life purpose, which is the purpose of my life is to share my tremendous love with all of God's children, bringing happiness to others through my playful soul and by being an example of living an extraordinary life. And I repeat that every day. And that's my guiding light. That's my North Star as far as if I know if I'm in alignment or not. And whenever I'm not living that purpose, I can tell, because I feel off, if I forget to be playful, or if I'm mean to somebody, or I forget to love somebody, I very quickly figure out that that's what's going on.
Yeah, I've seen your post. You're going some pretty cool places, doing really cool stuff. You were in the snow a couple weeks ago. I don't know where you were at, but it just saw you just in the sleds and stuff, and it was really cool to see.
Yeah, we did a little event up at Bear Lake. We did an event in Arizona 2 weeks ago. I've got one out here in Salt Lake in a couple of weeks, and so we're always, I'm always. We do an event almost every 3 weeks on average. So yeah, man, it's fun. I've got 4 different groups, and so each group gets together once a month. And so when you kind of start doing the math, and then I have other events that everybody's invited to. So it's a blast, man. But yeah, we don't, it's not for a lack of events putting in. That's why you got to figure out that you love what you're doing, because if not, there's no way I'd be able to do it at the level I need to, because it's just so much work. Right. And so I think that's why it's so important.
Well, I think that's why a lot of people get burnt out their jobs, because they're just at these dead end menial jobs, and they just get into like just a routine, and at the end of the day they just get dead because they hate what they do.
Yeah, exactly right.
And I like that you mentioned too, being playful, and just like, I don't know, at some point men are told to grow up and to not be, because when you're a kid, like, you want to go on adventures. And when I watched Lord of the Rings when I was a teenager, like I wanted to go on the adventure with them and do those things. And as you get older, you're like, well, no, DJ, you have to take responsibility. You have to do this. You have to do that. And you start to go away from being that playful self, that true, like, just like almost like, that's the way we were designed, was just to go and have fun. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're taking away from your family or your wife, but it's just like, you incorporate all of that with them, versus being this guy that's absent, or this guy that's, doesn't want to, like, is strict and has parameters and goes to work, comes home, like, just talks to the children and not with them or having fun with them. And so I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit more, on how you stay intentional on being playful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm naturally a very playful person. It's when I'm happiest, and so it works out pretty well for me. But, when I was a kid, I just remember, like, I'd go to a friend's house, and, you're downstairs, and their dad just comes home from work, and that energy of the whole house just goes around and just goes down, right? And I remember thinking, like, even as a child, man, like, God, I just want to be a happy adult. I want people to be excited that I'm there. I want them to be happy that I'm in the room. And I never wanted to be the person that, like, sucked the energy out of a room. And so I was just really cognizant of it. And so then, one of my favorite movies as a kid was Patch Adams. And I remember he just, everywhere he went, he just left people feeling happier. And so that kind of became how I would just try to go about my day. I was just try to make people, I try to make people feel good when they're with me. I think one of my favorite all-time quotes is that quote. It's like, nobody cares how smart you are. Nobody cares how rich you are. Nobody cares how good looking or funny you are. The only thing they care about is how you make them feel when they're with you. And I just really, become obsessed with that idea, because it's really the truth. And so the only thing that really matters is how other people feel when they're with you.
Yeah, definitely. Like, if a lot of people need that nowadays, where they don't have a lot of people like that, where it's just, I could be around someone that's just gonna have fun and be happy, and you know, a lot of people just are just around people because everyone's so stressed out nowadays. It's just a lot of people are just, they exude that instead of just being happy.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that things, because I've been there where it's like I don't feel happy, or like people are like, oh, I don't feel motivated to do it, or these are things that kind of you know will come and go. But the thing that I found that's helped me out the most is staying grateful. Like, what do I have in my life that I'm thankful for every single day? So when I wake up and I'm on my way to work, like, I'm thankful for my wife. I'm thankful for Jasmine. I'm thankful for Nate, Elijah, and Rylan, my kids. I'm thankful that I have a job. I'm thankful that I have a car to get to my job. And I just start going through everything. And that is what keeps the joy in my life, is just those moments of gratefulness. I don't know if you found the same to be true, Jimmy, but if you want to talk about a little bit about gratefulness and how that's kind of helped you.
Yeah, I mean, the cool part about gratitude is it's when you are in that emotion, you can't really feel any of the negative emotions. It kind of hijacks them all. And one of the things that I say is, our minds are machines that are working to keep us alive. That's like their only job. And so they're constantly scanning for problems, for what's out of place, for what's wrong, for threats, for warnings. And so our mind all day has just been trained to look for what's going wrong. And so if you don't do something to hijack that or to change that, then unfortunately you're going to see everything that's wrong. And look, we find evidence for whatever we want to in life. If you're looking for what's wrong, it's out there. If you're looking for what's right, it's also out there. And so, ultimately, you have to train your brain to look for what's going right. And that's the gratitude exercise. So one of the most important things we do in the program is every single morning, you write down a couple things you're grateful for and you send it out to other people. And so, and that just starts to train you for that day to start looking for what you're grateful for, look for what is going right. And nothing will probably change your life quicker if you're in an ungrateful state than to get to a grateful state.
I like that, texting people in the morning, kind of just getting it out of your head, because most of us just wake up, we look at our phone, and we just start our day, and we just move on. So yeah, I do like starting your day like that, and kind of like I've kind of been trying to figure out my morning routine and what lies in it, whether it's getting up and just breathing for a few minutes. We talked to Rudy Reedskins a few weeks back, and he was like, that's how he starts the day, with just in meditation and just breathing. And so I've been trying that and just different things, trying like my devotional, but I do like just kind of texting someone, because you also start their day off nice too, because it gets them in that same mindset of what am I thankful for,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was really cool.
Yeah, and I like starting it off. Oh, go ahead, Alec.
I was just breathing weird, sorry.
Oh, you're good. No, I really like starting the day off like that, and not starting the day off with hopping on social media and getting into this mode of comparison. I know I hear a lot of people talk about, like, do not do that. That is the recipe for disaster for you, because when you start comparing yourself, then you're not grateful for what you have. You start becoming envious and wanting what other people have, even though you're just seeing glimpses of their life. And that's kind of the problem with social media. That's one of the problems, but it can be good, and there are benefits to social media. But starting your day off with that, and I don't know if you found the same thing to be true, Jimmy. If you want to talk about a little bit about how social media has kind of shaped us into comparison versus just being grateful and thankful for the things that we have.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a whole thing. Like, social media, unfortunately, you're never supposed to pay attention to so many people at once, think about so many people at once, compare yourself to so many people at once. And so it can be really destructive if you're in a grateful place. I think social media is great. You're connecting, you're seeing there, and you got to just be real with yourself. Like, how do you feel when you're on social media? If it makes you feel bad, or makes you feel like you're not enough, or makes you feel like you're a loser, or maybe you're lonely or whatever, it's a problem, right? But you can curate your own social media. So like when I go to mine, it's all the guys that I coach, it's their families, it's friends of mine. I block anybody that ever says anything negative to me, or I mute them. And so I don't see negativity anymore when I pull up social media. And so I think you can make it work for you as a tool. And then one thing I always say is, like, for every hour I consume, I should spend an hour creating. And as long as I keep that ratio, I can put a lot out into the world, and I can get I can do a lot of good with that. And so it's like anything, a tool, but it's absolutely, I mean, look, you can get sucked into so many issues that have nothing to do with you. And if you're not careful, it's really hard to be happy if you're just constantly looking at other people's lives and what they're doing.
Uh-huh. Oh, sorry. With the comparison, like I have seen myself do that in the past, where I'll like, because I've got an okay car, it's run down, but like I don't even know what people's cars sometimes. I'll see their backseat, I'm like, oh, what kind of car is that? It's stupid stuff we do, but I do like that, like with curating. Now that I do, so I do social media mainly for my work. I do it for our stuff, and I do it for my church and stuff like that. So that's mainly what I do now. And I have found myself that when I am on social media, it's more for what am I doing to use it as a tool now versus what am I doing to use it as a escape, I guess, because a lot of people do use it as an escape. And so it's cool to kind of see that, where you can say, you can make it work for yourself, and you can make it.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, part of the importance is where you go, okay, am I trying to just escape right now, or am I actually trying to connect,
Mm-hmm. And then you talk about, you have 1 hour of, creative time for every hour you spend on. Let's talk about creative. Like, you have an amazing podcast. Are you coming up on 700 episodes ish, somewhere around there?
Yeah, coming up on it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. I think we're around 60, 65 ish now.
That's great.
Yeah. We looked at a study when we were back around like 20, and we're like, yeah, we did it. Cause it says like, not like, like 90% of podcasts don't even hit episode 20. Now we're like 60 something. So we're like, woo, and you feel really cool. You're like, well, yeah, I'm Joe Rogan. No, we're not Joe Rogan. We're up there. So yeah, the podcasting is fun. What kind of takeaways for men who like want to start podcasting? Any tips for people who want to start?
Yeah, I have a couple pretty good tips for people. Number one is, only do it if you want to do it for fun. Like, find a way to do it that you really enjoy it, because it's going to feel like work, and it's going to be hard, and you're not going to get rich. You're not going to get famous. Most likely that's going to be the outcome, right? Like, and Joe Rogan started his podcast that way. That's how I started mine. I just wanted to do it for myself. I wanted to have it for posterity. I wanted to just, if I ever died or something happened to me, the world would know who I was. I have these things out there. You go listen to me. And so for me, I've had the opportunity. Now I make some pretty good money doing it. I can make some pretty cool sponsorship deals and things. I've had some amazing guests on, the childhood heroes of mine, some of them, and just amazing human beings. And, I've had some guests say some things that went viral that I think helped change the world a little bit, in my own opinion. And so it can be really cool, but none of that was the reason I started. I was hundreds and hundreds of episodes in before any of that happened. And so I just tell people, like, the one thing is do it in a way that you would do it if nobody was listening. Because if you can do that, and then you don't care. Because I just swear to God, I don't look how many views I get. I know it does well. I don't necessarily make money on it or push to make money on it. Like, I can and I have, but it's not the reason I do it. Per dollar per hour is probably the thing I get paid the least on of anything I do. And so, just that's my best advice for people. And if you're willing to do that, then I think you got something.
I think that's why a lot of people get into it, because they're like, oh, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to be famous. And
they want to like get these clips going viral and stuff. I had a clip last year I got the chance to interview Rob O'Neill. He's the guy that killed Osama bin Laden. And I flew to New York to do that podcast. And he said something in a clip. I've got it on my Instagram. It's pinned on my Mr. Jimmy Rex account. But between all the platforms, on my TikTok, it got millions of views. And then it kept getting grabbed by all these other like patriotic accounts. And it's gotten over a couple 100 million views by now. I see it all the time on Twitter and other people's accounts with 50,000, 100,000 likes, stuff like that. But it, he basically says, I went to war, and he's like, I remember this guy who I shot in his bedroom. And he's like, why'd I shoot him? Because he went for a gun. Well, why'd he go for a gun? Because I was in his bedroom at 2 a.m. And he's like, what if I'd have met that guy in Paris, like having coffee? The only reason we were killing each other is because George Bush was mad that his dad got disrespected by this. And it's like, holy shit. Because I'm very anti-war. And so like, it was just this clip that I love. Like, that one clip alone made doing every podcast I've done worth it, because I really think with the amount of people that have seen it and heard it expressed from that man, it changes the world a little bit. I guarantee there's tens of thousands of people that probably change their view on what war is. And so I don't know. I just think do it eventually you're going to find your voice. You're going to find the right guests. You're going to, your audience will find you, the people that need it, that are wanting to hear it. That's when you've got something special.
That's kind of how it is for us. Like we're coming up on 2 years. And so like when we started, it was just us. And I feel like our thing nowadays is just, if we can help out one person with our podcast, that's worth it, And it's mainly for us. We've been friends since we were 11 years old. So it's just us hanging out. This is our one time a week we actually get to hang out. And now we're really talking to some really cool people. Like we've had you on our 50th. We had Sean Whalen on. We had the dad bods. And so we've had some really cool people, especially this year. It's been how crazy had the shift from the last year and a half where it was just me and DJ. We had a guest. We had like a couple like low end other dad podcasts. Just guys like us that were doing this, like, oh, let's help each other out. To now, since January, we've gone to now we've only had one episode by ourselves because we've had guest. And so it's really cool to talk to other people and just kind of see what they're doing, talk to you about just life and just other men and just growing, And so to see the growth is really cool. But yeah, 100%, you got to do it because it's something you like to do, not versus something you want to get into, make $1 million, because it's just not real.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's something that we heard too when we had a guest on, and he told us, like, you got to find something where you're giving value. Mm-hmm. And you're not just doing it to get, right? You're not just doing it to make the money, become famous. Like you're actually like authentically wanting to help other people. And when you get to that place, and I kind of feel like that's been your success, Jimmy, is like you found that place where I get to help people and I want to help people and I want people to get to a healthy place in life. And I want people to, hear these stories, maybe about how war really is and just kind of like really impact people. And those are the clips that go viral because people find value in them and they feel like you've literally maybe changed a portion of their life. And because of that, you may never meet them, but they'll be grateful from that moment on because of you, because you were willing to do that. And so I think that's probably the biggest key, is just trying to pour value into the world.
Yeah, no, exactly right. Thanks, man. Yeah, that really is. I mean, that's the only way that you're going to want to keep doing it is, when you are giving that value. Otherwise, you'll just get to a point where you just kind of get over it for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of our whole thing is like, we want a podcast for when dads are in the dark. It's kind of like when we were going through rough times and stuff, like we want something for us essentially. And so that's kind of what we're building it. We want this to be for dads like us, where you just need someone to go to. If you don't want to talk to someone, cool, but you can go listen to these two stupid guys on the internet talk about how they went through rough times. Maybe you can connect with that a little bit,
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's needed. You're going to find the guys, like you said, that are going to relate to you, and those are the people you're doing this for.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any tips? I know, so you have like the 40-day journey, you have the We Are the They, you have all these communities. And so like for us, like we want to start that community. Do you have any tips for like starting up a men's community? Like,
it's amazing, but it's also a lot of work. So make sure that you definitely want to do it. What would be my best advice? I mean, it's amazing, man. It's an opportunity to serve so many people. Find out what your avatar is, and then how you can best serve them. Like, who are the people that we want to really, find or pour into, or we'd like to join us, and what do I have to offer that nobody else does? What can I do to create value that, better than anybody else? That's what I would say.
Okay. Thank you. Well, DJ?
Yeah. Well, we always like to, ask this question. We usually, like, when we have a dad on, we'll ask, like, what's that one piece of advice that you'd give a dad? What's that one piece of advice that you'd give a man? Just, figuring out life, or maybe in the thick of life, or maybe coming to the tail end of their life. Like, what's that one piece of advice that you have taken to heart that you would give somebody that would be like life changing, if you will, that like is like the one thing that you would give if
Yeah,
like
I think
you
I
could
got a
only give
pretty
one?
Yeah, I mean, my best advice for dads in particular is your kids aren't going to listen to you because you told them to. They're going
Mhm.
to listen to you if you are passionate about your own life. Like if they see like, man, my dad has a badass life. My dad has cool friends. My dad's doing cool experiences. My dad's always excited. My dad seems to really be living a life that I would want to live. Then he's going to do whatever the hell you tell him to because they can see that you're living your life in a
Right.
passionate way. And so that was, again, one of the reasons I started my group, and I added a lot of high adventure and excitement to it because I wanted kids to like see their dad doing something. Like, my dad's a superhero. And I think so. My best advice to dads is like, live a life that your kids would want to live like you. And if you do, then they'll want to listen to you. And that's the best advice I have for dads. Is I think a lot of parents, they kind of forget to really put that time and effort into their own lives. They're too worried about their kids' lives. They go to every single thing they do and they quit living their own dreams. And so they tell their kids to go for their passion. And they're like, Dad, you gave up on your dreams years ago,
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big mistakes that dads make. And they're doing it in good faith sometimes. But I also think they can use their kids as a little bit of a crutch or an excuse to not live for their own dreams. And so just check yourself and make sure that you're living a passionate life that's worth modeling after.
Mm-hmm. No, I like that because we have heard that in the past where it's like, what are you doing with your life? You're like, well, I have my family. Okay, cool. But what are you doing?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And so, yeah, definitely we don't want to give up on our dreams. That's another reason the podcast, like this is something we want to do. So we have to have that time every week. We're like, all right, yeah, we got to do it because this is our thing. Like we have to get out of the norm and break that cycle of like, nope, Saturday morning, dads are in the studio doing the podcast, So,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
what they need, that stuff. So,
Mm-hmm. Well, cool. Well, as we wrap up, Jimmy, just thank you for your time and just thank you for blessing with your time. Where can people find you?
yeah, best place to find me, I put everything through my Instagram, which is Mr. Jimmy Rex. And so if you just want to go on there, Mr. Jimmy Rex, and yeah, reach out anytime. If anybody listening to this is interested in checking us out, send me a DM and let's chat.
Awesome. Well,
Thanks, guys. Keep doing your thing, man.
thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.